to get started just for the sake of time and also just being mindful of your guys' time. So appreciate you guys joining today. Like I said, I think it's an exciting time. There's a lot happening in Costa Rica. So I get so many DMs all the time that I thought, let me just make a presentation that you can refer back to, that you are able to, continue to add information on. And I have something that I'm going to share with you guys at the end as well. So feel free, like I said, as we go along, put your questions into the chat. I'm going to be utilizing that. And I'm just going to give you guys a little brief introduction. If you don't know who I am, my name is Shay Invidiata, and I am from Oakville, from Toronto, and I moved to Costa Rica full-time in September of 2021. I purchased 2 places down there, and I've been traveling to Costa Rica for just over 10 years now. I have real estate partners down there that I've been working with for that same length of time. And I have to say, Costa Rica has never been one of those places that I would be like in my top 3, my top 2 as to purchasing and moving there. But when things happened with COVID and the pandemic, there was a lot of things about Costa Rica that just became really important for me on an enjoyment level, lifestyle, values, location. And I'm going to share some of that with you guys today as well, as to why Costa Rica is just this incredible country that offers so many different opportunities, whether you want to live there yourself or you are looking to invest, or maybe do a hybrid where you want to use it for a few months out of the year, and then maybe you're interested in the cash flow standpoint. So we're going to kind of look at a few different options there. So, okay, I'm going to, can you guys, I think you can see my screen. I might have to do this here. No. I want to be able to see the chat. I think it'll pop up. I will periodically check, and I apologize because see, now you can see my little chat boxes here. But anyways, let's get started. So really excited, like I said, able to own a piece of paradise. One of the key things I think for Costa Rica is that right now it's at its infancy stage in terms of the value. Never before has Costa Rica been paid so much attention to from a real estate standpoint. And so this is kind of best of both worlds. It's still a good time to get into real estate in Costa Rica, but from an investment and a return on your investment standpoint, this makes Costa Rica extremely attractive just because people are starting to come there more and more. And so that is a positive thing for the country. Just a brief overview of what you can expect that we're going to be going through today. I'm going to give you kind of high level overview of Costa Rica, choosing your location. We're going to go through visa, immigration stuff, the purchasing process in Costa Rica, healthcare and safety, schools, ease of living, and then a one-stop opportunity for you guys that I will share at the end. So Costa Rica, as we say in Espanol, bienvenidos por vida, which you will hear often in the country. It is one of the fastest growing countries in Central America. It is for many different reasons. Like Costa Rica has been pegged as one of the best countries for retirement to live in. Like I shared with you before, Costa Rica from the real estate standpoint is at its infancy. And because of that, values and purchasing ability is very strong, because pretty much when you compare it to other ocean properties, beachfront properties, kind of Caribbean style living, it's still very affordable in Costa Rica to acquire and obtain. It is one of the happiest countries in the world, which if you're going to move somewhere, if you're going to invest somewhere, you definitely want to be living in a country where the people are happy. And part of that, I think, is Costa Rica is pegged as it's got a blue zone in the country, which if you don't know what a blue zone a country is considered, or a blue zone, I should say, it's basically on a global scale looking at where people live the longest and also the healthiest. And in Nicoya, in Costa Rica, that particular area has been pegged as a blue zone where people are living the longest and the healthiest. It is an incredible, simple life. One of the things that I love about Costa Rica is the simplicity of not needing to have a lot of stuff, but you feel like you have everything. You live a very rich life. With that being said, with simplicities can come some complexities, and I will get into that as well. So there is a shift, you know, when you're coming down to Costa Rica, especially if you're going to live there. I always say that's very different than vacationing. So you've got to adjust to a more simple life. Health, healing, and high vibrations. One of my favorite things really about Costa Rica is that long before even like COVID came around, Costa Rica is known for its health and healing seminars and retreats. So you might have heard of an area in Costa Rica called Nosara, and Nosara is the kind of like the mecca for yoga retreats, meditation, sound baths, healing, breath work. It's a place that's very, very rich and known for that. And that has also spread out throughout the rest of the country. And so living that kind of healthy lifestyle and people who are wanting to operate at a higher frequency, we kind of call that like conscious living, conscious thinking, being fully present. These are all things that you will find very common no matter where you are in the country. And so I absolutely love that, because you step into this community of people that really want to live not only their best life, but they want to help you live your best life. And there's this constant sharing of wealth and knowledge in different health industries. So it's pretty special from that standpoint. And I always say the Ticos are the beauty of the country. And so, you know, this is obviously it's super important. Like if you're going to be living somewhere, you want to know that just as beautiful as the country might be with the gorgeous waterfalls like you're seeing in this photo, that the people are just as such, because that's going to also determine the safety in the country. It's going to determine your community in the country, and how well that you're going to adjust and feeling like you're being embraced into the country. And have to say that Costa Ricans are probably the most helpful people that you will meet. I could tell you so many stories of, you know, people's cars being broken down in the middle of the night on the side of the road. And, you know, a really beautiful Tico stops to help and make sure that, you know, that they're taken care of. So it's a very, very loving country from that standpoint, which is part of why it makes it the happiest country in the world. Location. So this is, you know, I think when you start thinking about Costa Rica, this is where you need to start first, is deciding which adventure do you want to have? Are you wanting to come to Costa Rica for investment only? Are you wanting to be an end user? Or are you wanting to do both? So an end user would be somebody who, like me, purchased and I'm now living in that country. Or are you wanting to do the hybrid, live in the country a little bit and then also look for some rental opportunity and cash flow opportunity. And so I've put some different cities that you might have heard of, that some of them are a little better from an investment standpoint, in that they're more popular, which means you're going to have more tourists that are going there right now. That being said, there is so much growth that's happening in this country and many people coming for different reasons, that even some of the smaller towns, for example, in Dominical, which I have listed down there, which is where I live, is becoming very, very sought after quickly. And just even in a short period of time, in over a year, my real estate has increased quite a bit. So depending on what you want, you know, if you're looking just for the investment, the rental side and the cash flow, some of the more kind of popular known touristy areas are Tamarindo, Nosara, Santa Teresa, which those are all in the northern province, West Province. So all along the West Coast, Manuel Antonio, Dominical, Uvita, and then some of those crossed over into kind of that both end user category. I will say this, people ask me about the East Coast, which is where Limon is, and Puerto Viejo. it is a great place to go and visit and go there for 5 days. It feels like if Jamaica were to have a baby with Costa Rica, you would get Puerto Viejo. It's got a really cool West Indie vibe. You'll hear a lot of reggae, amazing food, very, like I said, West Indian inspired. So for some people that might be more commonly known, like around Jamaican food, Trinidadian food, but it is spectacular, but there's still in one area, there's a lot of crime there. So it's from an investment standpoint, it's not an area that I would want to invest in. It's also not an area that I per se would want to be living in. So I tend to recommend to people to be looking on the west side of the country, which brings you down to Guanacaste province, and then also Punta Arenas, which is where all of these cities are listed. Visa and immigration. So people ask all the time, you know, how can I move to Costa Rica? What do I need to do? Can I just show up there without purchasing anything? How long can I stay? So if you kind of look, not necessarily from right to left, but on the right side, if you want to just come in for a vacation, or you're thinking you want to get an Airbnb for a month or 2 months, the tourist visa is the simple, easy way to go. I'm going to just open up the chat here really quickly. Yes, the slides will be shared after the meeting. Absolutely. They will be. So the tourist visa is the easiest way to go. It's 90 days. You don't need to apply for anything. So all you need to do is have a Canadian or an American passport, and you'll be eligible to be in the country for 90 days. The only thing with that is you will need to have a return ticket booked, and you will need to show that at immigration. You will most likely be asked for that at the time that you're boarding from wherever you're boarding from. So, you know, if you're in New York, Toronto, when you check in, they're going to ask to see your return ticket to be leaving the country. So that's really the only requirement. If you want to stay beyond the 90 days, as a tourist without investing any money or having to kind of get into what I will start to share about the rentista, the pensioner program. It's very simple. People and expats do this all the time, where you just need to book a weekend getaway somewhere else. You need to basically leave the country for 24 hours. So it's very common. People will go to Mexico for the weekend. They'll drive across to Panama. Some people go to Nicaragua, Honduras. Those aren't my top 2 choices, but going over to like Mexico City for the weekend, and then you can easily come back and your 90 days will be renewed. So that's a very simple, I'm going to say the least expensive way to be able to stay in Costa Rica for an extended period of time. The rentista, the pensioner, and the investor, so you can see I've asterisked them all. These ones allow you, they basically qualify you if your goal is to become a permanent resident of the country. And once you kind of start that filing process and application, it can take anywhere between 14, 18 months. And there's some delays right now. So sometimes they're saying approximately 2 years. I myself personally came in on an investor visa, and I just had my immigration appointment in March, and now they're telling me about 18 months. Hopefully that will speed up. So the rentista program, you need to show proof of monthly income of at least $2,500 for the last 2 years, or $60,000 deposit into a Costa Rican bank. And all of these numbers, sorry, I didn't put it on the rentista, is USD. So you would have to show that proof in order for them to be able to grant you that, and then have that other deposit in a Costa Rican bank account. Some people don't really love that idea of having $60,000 just sitting in a foreign bank account. I personally don't think it's the best way to go, and I'll share a little bit more about that in a moment. The pensioner option for residency is really, really great. And this is part of why Costa Rica is known as one of the greatest countries to retire in, because it allows for people that have a pension plan. You have to show minimum 1,000 USD coming into your account every month from your pension plan. So you would just show proof of that, and you will be welcomed into the country, and then you could actually start your residency process that way. The last and the most expensive is the investment visa. And as of last July of 2021. Yes, it was 200,000 USD that you had to invest in a property in Costa Rica. I really believe because of how many Canadians are moving to the country and how, because of how horrible our dollar is, that they have adjusted it, and it got approved in the summer and then went into effect in the fall, that they've lowered that to $150,000. So that's really, really fantastic for the Canadians on the call. And after you have purchased and you can show that paperwork, you can file for your appointment. I did mine in September, and it's about a 6-month wait to get your immigration appointment right now. And then you'll be able to start that process. The other thing I'll say just around immigration, if you have other questions around this, I can go deeper into this, but to go through and get your permanent residency process is quite a lengthy process. If you are not going to be in Canada when you have filed for your residency, I highly suggest that you have somebody who can help you on the other end, because you're going to have to send your police checks, your fingerprints that you're going to have to go get done from the RCMP. There's and I can send you the list, but there's all of these stipulations that you're going to need to do, and then having to go get it all notarized once it's gone to the Costa Rican embassy in Toronto or wherever you're applying from. So for me, being Canadian in Toronto, I had to do the Costa Rican one in our city. So if you were from New York, you'd have to do that in Manhattan. And then from there, after it's notarized, it gets sent back down to Costa Rica. So it's really helpful to have somebody that you really trust and love who can assist you on that other side. So that's a great question. Is the income per individual or is it per couple? So if it is not a spouse, then it is separate. But if you are married, then it allows that 150,000 is a joint unit, and also would extend to your children up until they are no longer dependent. So the legal age, I believe, is 18 or 19. So the process of purchasing in Costa Rica. So let's kind of go through what that looks like. So financing, escrow, banking, lawyers, taxes, corporations, realtors, and licenses. So there's a lot of things that are very similar in Costa Rica to purchasing in Canada and the United States. And then there's a plethora of things that are completely different. So financing being at the top is, you want to purchase in Costa Rica. How are you going to fund your purchase? There really is no financing in the country. So whatever you're looking at, whatever you want your budget to be, you should be expecting that you're paying cash. And again, everything is in USD. There is the native currency for the country is called colones, but it trades on the USD. So when you're looking at a house, you're going to see prices that you're going to see are all going to be in US dollars. And there's no financing. It is not that common, but you will see it where if a seller will offer what we call a VTB, so a vendor take back, which is basically like offering me as the buyer a mortgage on the property. You are going to be paying a higher interest rate for that, even though our rates are going up dramatically right now in Canada and the United States. Rates are at about 4%-ish, give or take, depending on who you bank with. But with that right now in Costa Rica, the standard, if a seller is giving you a mortgage back on the property, which they are registered, they have a note. So no different than in Canada, RBC gives you your mortgage and they're first on title to get paid out. So this is the same structure in Costa Rica, where the seller goes on the note, goes on title, and they need to be paid out first, but they're handing you over the mortgage, and anywhere between 8 to 10%. So it's higher. And the term is much shorter. So in Canada and the United States, we're used to an amortization period of anywhere between 25 to 30 years, and also a term with the bank from like 3 to 5 years. So here it's usually 3 to 4. Sometimes you can get 5, but the expected is is at the end of your term, you're literally paying the rest of that cash. So there is not an option per se to renew. You'd have to renegotiate that with the seller. And at that time, you don't know if obviously they could raise the interest rate on you. So it's not a route that I recommend. It's not something I would plan for. Like I said, whatever the number is that you're looking at, if it's 300,000, if it's 500,000, you should be budgeting and expecting that you're paying 300,000 cash USD. The other really big component of this is the wiring of money down to the country. So when you purchase in Costa Rica, you will be required to set up an escrow account. And you will also need separate lawyers. So two totally different entities. In the United States, the word escrow is very comfortable because it's how transactions are done. So similar to the US, in Costa Rica, the funds will get wired down to escrow that are held in trust. And in Costa Rica, they are highly meticulous. I'm not going to say to a fault, because it's actually a really good thing, especially in a developing country, where they want to be able to see exactly where those funds have come from, and they can't be used any other way. And escrow is held very, very highly, that if they were to miss something, legally they'd be held responsible. So there's a strenuous process for that you need to show where this money is coming from. So your money would go into escrow, and only once you instruct your escrow, once the property is closed, will escrow release those funds, and that exchange is done. So similar kind of in concept, like in Canada, it's the lawyers that will exchange the funds on closing. In this case, it's the lawyers that do, or sorry, escrow that does it. The biggest thing I will share with you, the biggest tip that most people do not realize right now, is that if you are not physically present in your country to wire money, you are not going to be able to send money down to Costa Rica. So for example, you say, I want to leave Canada, we're not coming back, kind of similar maybe to like what Shay did, moving countries, and you pack up your bags and you leave Canada with no intentions on going back. You go down to Costa Rica, you say, we're going to do an Airbnb for a month, and then we're going to find something to purchase, and then we're going to purchase. Great, good idea. You come down, and now you found a place and you want to purchase it, and you want to contact your bank to say, could you please TD wire $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 to my escrow account? They will tell you that you personally need to come into the branch to wire that money. And most people don't know that and don't realize it. The only workaround of that, there's two things. One, if you are in private banking, which majority of people are not, but if you are in private banking, you are able to avoid that, and you can wire money from wherever you are in the world. It's a privilege of private banking. If you're not in private banking, the only other option would be to assign a power of attorney to somebody who could go into the branch and wire money on your behalf. Now, people say to me, is that not like super risky? POAs, power of attorneys, can be as broad or they can be as specific as you want them to be. So you could say, if you know, like your brother, maybe you don't trust your brother, but if you have a best friend or like say a relative that's up here that somebody you do trust, you could say, you could instruct your lawyers to create a limited power of attorney, which would give them the ability to go into your bank and to wire that money down to an escrow account. And you could set up an escrow account even before you go down to Costa Rica, but you could get super specific. So they would only be allowed to go into the branch for a specific amount of money to that specific escrow account. So there's ways to get around it, but I just really encourage people to think about that. If your plan is to kind of move and leave Canada, even the United States, without going back, because that will cause a problem for you. Banking, let me just actually take a look because there's a question here. I wire money all the time, all over the phone, not in the branch. I would love to know who you are with. I bank with CIBC, TD, and RBC, and I can tell you at least 10 different horror stories of other people who they are not able to do that. You might be able to do that up to a certain amount, but when you're starting to talk about 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, it's never been possible for those people. So, and sending an e-transfer versus a wire is also different. So, just check in with your bank on that and just make sure that you are fully set up before you leave the country. Because like I said, there's been many instances in Costa Rica where people have not been able to get funds out of the country because they're not physically present in Canada. Banking. So people ask, do you need a bank account? Your escrow account functions like a bank account, and it functions like people who can pay bills for you. You can instruct them to do that. I find it a super simple way to ease into Costa Rica. The banking in Costa Rica is very complicated and a nightmare. To just open up a bank account, you will need to purchase something. So you will have to show your title that you've purchased. You need a letter from your accountant back home for verification of income in Canada. You need your passport. You will also need a letter from your lawyer in Costa Rica. There's all of these things that make it very challenging to get a bank account in Costa Rica. The first year, you really don't need one because you've got an escrow account. Eventually you will probably want one if you are going to be living there more full time. But if you are somebody that's just investing, your escrow account is going to be fine. You can instruct them to pay all of your internet bills, pay your electricity bills, pay your property tax. And I find that's a much easier way to segue into like kind of getting that bank in Costa Rica, because you really don't need it at the beginning. Lawyers, of course, you will definitely need lawyers to purchase. I've got great people for that, and they can help you all over the country. The other element where you'll need lawyers, which I'll just touch on here, is if you're going to be purchasing a vehicle in the country. So anytime the title of something is traded in Costa Rica, you will need a lawyer to conduct those searches. Taxes. So taxes for capital gains, big question that I get. If you purchase prior to 2019, the rules were different, but since all of you guys are here on this call right now and most likely have not purchased in Costa Rica, that won't be applicable to you. So from 2000 onwards, you pay 15% capital gains tax, regardless if you are a permanent resident or if you are an investor in the country. The only way that you don't pay capital gains is if that property is your permanent resident that you are designating in the country, and you would have to be showing that you are living there for more than, I believe it's 6 months out of the year. And so that's your standard 15% capital gains. Corporations only. This is another thing. I highly recommend that if you are purchasing in Costa Rica, you will need to also consult with like your accountants back home. Highly recommend you to do that to make sure that you are strategizing for the best way for tax for yourself with CRA in Canada or the IRS in the United States. But for your legal protection, especially if you're going to be renting it out, you want to purchase it in a corporation. So you start a corporation in Costa Rica. It's about $1,200 to do that. Your lawyers can do that. The same lawyers that you use to close on your property, the same lawyers that you use to conduct the due diligence, the surveys, the titles, all of that can open up your corporation for you to hold your real estate in. It protects you, and it's also better from a tax standpoint. And you should definitely consult as well, like I said, with your accountants in Canada or the United States. Realtors and licenses. So this is a big one. I mentioned I've been coming down to Costa Rica for 10 years now for work, and I've got an incredible team of realtors all over the country. So no matter if you're in Papagayo, Tamarindo, in Nosara, you're going down to Santa Teresa, Dominical, Manuel Antonio, we've got a great team of people from all over the country. In Costa Rica, there are a lot of agents I can't say that majority of them are good, unfortunately, but kind of no different than Canada or the US. I think like there's so many, the market's oversaturated with realtors, and there's many out there that are not good. I'm sure all of you on this call have probably had a negative encounter or know somebody that does with a realtor. So it's not just in Costa Rica, but we also don't need a license in Costa Rica to trade real estate. And that's like the biggest differential. And so there is not a governing body to regulate transactions. There's not a governing body to regulate code of ethics and fiduciary duties that we have in Canada and in the United States. So who you choose to work with to find you a property and to like represent you is really, really important. So, and you know, this call for me today is not to say, you know, use me, you have to use me. Obviously, I would love and be so happy to help you through that process. But if you already know an agent in Costa Rica, you know, speak to them. But if you know people that are wanting to purchase and they don't have somebody, then you definitely want to align them with somebody who really knows what they're doing and who has a license. And of course, like I said, we've got a great team across the country, and we would be happy to take care of you, including introducing you to like our escrows and the lawyers, and just making that transition very seamless for you. Let me just take a quick chat here. Okay. Okay, so healthcare and safety. The WHO, a little while back, ranked Costa Rica as the 36th best healthcare system in the world, and actually placed it above the United States in 2000. So there's private healthcare, there's public healthcare, and then of course as well, you can also get health insurance, whether you're coming in just as a tourist, and there's many different international plans. There's also local plans as well, different great companies. And if that's of interest, you know, I can share it in more detail with you. The private healthcare system, I have to say, is really exceptional. I had a horrific, I'll just share with you like quickly my experience. I had a horrific kidney infection in the fall of last year. And I also had surgery in San Jose, a pretty invasive surgery, might I add, in March of this year. And so I've gone through the private healthcare system. I've gone through the public healthcare system a couple times for different reasons. I've had multiple blood work done. I've had ultrasounds done. I've had x-rays done. And like I said, I had full-blown surgery. And then I was in a recovery center for 3 weeks in San Jose. And so I feel that I have a very good experience and understanding spectrum of the healthcare, and I have to say that even in the public healthcare system, yeah, it's great, and no complaints, and it's very accessible, the public healthcare system really all over the country. In San Jose, which is the capital of the country, you are going to have the most private healthcare establishments. You're going to have the biggest hospitals. You're going to have the best healthcare in San Jose. So oftentimes, you know, if it's needed, you will have to go to the main city. Liberia as well has private healthcare too. Those are the two biggest cities in the country. So just let me pop up one more question here. Was that all covered by health insurance? No, it wasn't. It would have been actually. I actually didn't get health insurance when I came through, so it was not relevant for me from that standpoint. But if you were with like Blue Cross or Blue Shield, that definitely would have been covered, depending on how long you got your insurance for. So as long as you took it out for 60 days, 90 days, whatever it was, then it would have covered it. There's once you're in the country longer, there's a company that's called MediSmart, and you can become a member of that, and things like ultrasounds and x-rays at different establishments, you can get reimbursed for that, and that would be covered. I always say with the safety standpoint, just like any other country, including like being in a city like Toronto or going to Chicago, New York, just be smart. There's really not notorious crime in Costa Rica. It's a lot of petty crime. So if you leave like your laptop on the front seat of your car, there's a chance your car is going to get broken into. But I wouldn't even do that in Toronto, leaving my laptop on the seat, not because I think Toronto's super unsafe. It's just not smart, you know? So it's just asking for an issue when you don't need one to begin with. So it's being smart. And because of COVID, there has been, and things like gas obviously increasing, the cost of living has increased. More things like petty crime have started to happen across the country, but it's still not it's not enough, and it hasn't gone to a point at the crime, like at an elevated crime level, that I would at all say that Costa Rica is unsafe. So still feeling extremely safe in the country. We also have security systems at our properties. Again, just to be smart and having that public. We've got ADT, so we've got our signs out front just saying, you know, you're under surveillance, and obviously that very much helps. Just take a look at another question. Can you talk a bit more about the CAHA? I keep hearing about this on the XPAC Facebook group. I don't know what the CAHA is, Claire, if you want to expand on that, or I don't know if that was like in relation to what. CAHA is a box. So something to do, it has something to do with health insurance. I honestly, I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's something within the country. Like it could be similar to like a MediSmart, where you can, like you can pay into it. It's $8 a month, and that covers a lot of it. If you are like, if you're a permanent resident of the country, which many expats aren't, so this could be a little different, but if you're an expat, or sorry, a permanent resident of the country, you have access to the public health care, which is free. The only thing is you have to be a member. Maybe this is actually what you're talking about. You need to be a member of the certain organization. It could, maybe it's CAHA. I'd have to circle back to answer that properly for you. Where at the time that you filed for your permanent residency, whatever income level you declared, you have to pay a percentage of that every year. So if you are making more, like the most money you are right now, and then next year your income level decreases, you're still going to be paying that. You're going to be paying that certain percentage every year to basically have access to the healthcare, which I think that's what you're talking about. All that link is in the chat, so anybody can click on that, and I can circle back on that too and send out some other information on that. Schools, public and private. So, you know, this is education in Costa Rica overall, depending on where you are. There's going to be certain areas that have higher levels of education than others, no different than in our countries. With the amount of expats that are in the country, there are lots of private institutions and private options. The biggest in the country is the Waldorf systems that are literally from north to south, predominantly on the West Coast. So you do have that option. I think it's important to share. I put up here homeschooling. Obviously, for a lot of people, homeschooling was not on their radar until 2020 kind of came and adjusted the school systems and the way we do school for a lot of families. And many parents have decided to just continue homeschooling their children, especially if they move to Costa Rica. They're just wanting to homeschool. So homeschooling in Costa Rica is unfortunately not a recognized legal system. So I don't want to use the word that it's illegal, but it's not legal in Costa Rica. That being said, there are many, and I know many groups that do have their own homeschooling community groups, and they conduct school that way. But it's important for you to know just what Costa Rica recognizes versus not. And so that whatever your decision is as a parent, you just at least know how the country is operating. And then of course there's public schools throughout the country. And I would just recommend that wherever you are deciding that you want to live, just do some research to find out, you know, which better school or where the highest degree of education is. Let me just take a quick look in the chat. That it's not legally recognized. Yeah, so it basically means like they can come in and like shut down that gathering. They could give you a fine for conducting a school that is not recognized, a structure that's not recognized within Costa Rica. I don't know anybody personally that has been fined, but I do know that there has been situations where they have come in and basically said, you guys can't gather and meet anymore. It's kind of one of those like catch-22s. Like, is the government going to be coming around like every single week to see if the kids are going to be gathering? You know, it's one of those, okay, they come in, they tell you, and you just decide to continue to do it, which is what I know a handful of people are doing in Tamarindo area, and then also down in my region in Uvita. And so, yeah, there's different ways of, I guess, kind of doing that from that standpoint. But I should also say too, like even within the private and even some of the public systems, there are so many unique different schoolings that are outside of what we would call like the traditional, like, and I know I have one here of the classroom, a photo that I put, but a lot of the schools will offer like outdoor education. So there's a lot of time being spent in the garden and like learning about soil and how to build and ecosystems and sustainable living, permaculture practices, if you will. So there's actually really, really unique schooling programs at different schools within the country. Ease of living. Okay. Like I always say, and I mentioned this at the beginning, living and vacationing is very different. You know, being in Costa Rica, visiting a place versus saying like you are going to be living there full time. And so it is definitely an adjustment. There are a lot of things that you will need to obviously get used to, and certain things that you should think ahead of time that, I mean, I didn't know all of them and that I kind of like learned on the way. So one of the things I'll just quickly talk about is shipping, for example. Shipping to Costa Rica is one of the hardest, most expensive, borderline, your stuff doesn't get to you process that you learn. And I haven't met a person who has had a good experience with it. You kind of like, you do the shipping, you ship something once or twice, and then you realize like that's just not the way to go. There are other ways to get things into the country, and that's a longer conversation. So if you have interest in that or needing that, obviously you can do shipping containers. There's many people that do that, but I'm talking about, you know, for example, one thing that's really hard to get in Costa Rica is really, really good linens and bedwear. If I knew that beforehand, I for sure would have brought my pillow, and I would have probably brought my sheets and comforters. And so I've wanted to ship that down to Costa Rica, but we don't have Amazon Prime. We don't have things like that. So it's not economic from a time standpoint, but also from a cost standpoint. So you really have to start getting kind of like creative with how you're going to ship things down. For me now, I have somebody in Miami where I ship it to him, and he has a company in Costa Rica, and I literally bring everything through him. So some of those things you just have to get creative and realize you're not in a first world country. We don't have instant things showing up at our doorstep. So that's like a major adjustment of like planning ahead. Same thing depending on where you're living in the country. So I live in Dominical. I mentioned before, the two largest cities are San Jose and Liberia. And so in those obviously cities, you're going to have the, you know, the biggest infrastructure for your malls and goods and construction stuff and houseware and all of those things. You will hear very commonly from people in Nosara, Santa Teresa, Malpais, Montezuma, my area, Manuel Antonio, Uvita, of doing these weekend trips to the city. And that's when you go get all of your errands done. There's a Costco, which is called Price Smart. If you need to do a Costco run, you need to get house goods or house decor. They have the better, like their version of a Home Depot. You're going to do all of these runs in a weekend. So you, again, it's like this adjustment where you have to like plan around to be able to go and get what you need. It's not like a quick, like, hey, Sunday afternoon, let's go do a whole bunch of errands. It's a minimum 3-hour drive. And that's if there's no traffic, which there's always traffic in Costa Rica. So you always need a buffer for 4 hours. Well, you do a 4-hour drive one way, 2-3 hours, 4 hours of running around, and then you would have another 4-hour drive home. So most people break up that type of day and will stay in the weekend. So things like that, that's an adjustment. Obviously, things like nature are incredible. No matter where you are in the country, you will hear the howler monkeys often, you will see white-faced monkeys often, the toucans and the macaws, some of my favorite, absolute favorite things to see. The sloths you don't really see often, but when you do, they're pretty special. They, of course, just kind of hang out in the trees and sleep. Once in a while, you'll see them trying to cross the road. But the nature is so beautiful and the landscape is so serene. It's just it's a very powerful place to be. So that's very easy to get used to. Language wise, obviously the native tongue is Spanish in the country. A lot of people speak English. So it is easy to get by without speaking Spanish or not having any knowledge of Spanish, I should say. But I highly encourage you that if you don't know Spanish, that you start learning Spanish. The locals love nothing more than when they see people are moving to their country and trying to integrate and learn the language. And they're very helpful with it. And they're also very patient. So, and I have a great tutor. I have a guy twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, actually, where I do 1 hour with him, and he's so wonderful. But the language, you don't really have anything to worry about. People will speak English in most places that you go to. Cost of living compared to Canada, compared to Toronto, and obviously certain places in the United States, Costa Rica is more favorable. That being said, it is not as cheap as some other places in the world. So Costa Rica still has, I would say like a higher price point for the cost of living, but you're still going to be able to live in Costa Rica for a lot less than you would per se, like in Toronto, in the United States, depending on where your city is. Quality of life, it's amazing. Like I said, you wake up, you've got nature all around of you, you've got animals that are so beautiful all around you, and then the people are incredible as well. So quality of life definitely goes up when you move to Costa Rica. And there's endless things to do, from waterfalls to, spear fishing, to deep sea fishing, to free diving and scuba diving of both. I do both of those. I'm a diver. Of course, surfing and paddleboarding and paragliding and parachuting and skydiving. And there's so many things, climbing the volcanoes, going to the craters, going to the springs, waterfalls, canoeing, kayaking. It's endless. And it's just so beautiful. You got to call that home. So it's very special to have that. Transportation in Costa Rica. Public transportation, super affordable. It's fairly decent in the country, and you will find transportation goes everywhere, predominantly buses. And then we have hopper planes. So if you're going from like Manuel Antonio, more on the southwest side of the country, and you want to go to the northwest side, there's hopper planes that will that can take you. And those are pretty inexpensive as well. Cars, boats, same thing. We've got ferries. Cars, definitely, I will say you need to have a car in Costa Rica. You cannot get away without one. Many people will have quads. So like that's like an ATV. And I think those are great. They're super fun. You can easily boot around in them and find parking super, super easily. To me, they're not the most, what's the word I'm looking for? They are not the most practical in that there's a huge rainy season, which I'll kind of tap on that right now with weather. There's a huge rainy season in Costa Rica, which we're in that right now. It starts basically in April, end of April-ish, and will go to November. The most hardcore rain, and by hardcore, I mean like torrential downpour all day, practically every day, is October, November, those 2 months. But you've got a good chunk of the year from mid-April, end of April till end of November, that it is the rainy season. So if an ATV is your primary vehicle, for me, that's not the most practical. So I always recommend get a car first, and it needs to be a 4x4. The roads in Costa Rica are no joke. You will not be able to go up to so many areas, so many restaurants, roads. You might even live up on the mountain. You wouldn't be able to go up there if you didn't have a 4x4. So I tell people, spend the extra money up front. Again, you're paying cash for everything in US dollars for a vehicle. To me, it's very worth it to have a 4x4, and then you could get a quad afterwards. Mentioned the weather, the rainy season. So obviously the dry season then is from December to basically April, like end of March for sure, sometimes into April. And so because of that, of course, naturally, that's also the high season. So that's when everything's going to be the most expensive, from car rentals, hotels. There's also you'll see an increase on, of course, like activities and boating and all that kind of stuff. So that's the high season in Costa Rica. Food and farmers, kind of the last thing I wanted to touch on for you guys with around like living in Costa Rica. The food is incredible. There is lots of rice and chicken and beans, guacamole, pentacones in the country, and the food is very, very good and super fresh. There's a lot of opportunity. You will find basically in any city, any town, coastal town, that there's definitely a farmer's market every single week. And that's your opportunity to like go and meet your farmers and meet the people who are providing food for you. And that's like my favorite thing. I believe strongly in the closest we get to our food source and knowing who our food source is, that we are able to ensure the quality of our food, the cleanliness of our food. And I'm really big on organic, no pesticides, no GMO, of course. And so Costa Rica offers that. There is a lot of pesticide spraying though in Costa Rica. I will also mention that. So again, the importance of having organic and meeting your farmers. And so like for me, for example, every Thursday, my groceries actually get brought to me. I go online to our Ecoferia and I choose what groceries and produce that I need for that week. And then they actually bring them to me, or you can choose to do a pickup at the Ecoferia market on the Friday and they'll bring your groceries to you. So most coastal beach towns will have a very similar setup. And so that's just another great, fantastic thing for you to know. Your one-stop shop, basically. Okay, so I've put my contact information here. Obviously, you guys know I love Costa Rica and I'm down there and I'm so happy to help people with that transition and answering questions, which is why I'm making this. I am going to be I'm actually in the middle of creating a deeper version of this webinar where I'm going to provide all like items that you can and can't get in Costa Rica, things to think about that you should bring and pack beforehand, to, escrow contacts, to the lawyers, and just being able to give you all of that information. What are the private hospitals? What are the public hospitals? Where are they? How good are they? And when I first moved, I was very overwhelmed in some ways of going like, I don't know where the best private care is or the best hospital. And obviously when you need a hospital, that's not the time you want to be finding a hospital. So when I first moved, it's like, I really wish that I just had like all of this information available to me. It would make things a lot easier. And so I'm going to be putting that together. And if Costa Rica, if that's of interest to you and you want to go and do a deeper dive and you need more information, I'm going to be sending it out regardless. But I just want you guys to know that for joining today, that when I do release that, I'm going to be happy to give you 10% off, and you can use that code that you see on the screen, Pura Vida, which is the pure life. And so, and that's, you'll hear that being said all the time in Costa Rica. Let me just open it up. And muchas gracias. And at the bottom, of course, so nos vemos pronto en Costa Rica, which means I hope to see you guys in Costa Rica very, very soon. And pura vida. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If there's any other kind of last questions, I'm happy to answer those right now. Otherwise, if you think of them, like I said, even after this, you're welcome to email me anytime, and I'm happy to take those. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Otherwise, I know it's 5 o'clock, kind of top of the hour. So if you also have to hop off, then feel free to do that too. And I really appreciate you guys joining today. It's awesome to hang out with you guys. Cool. Okay, guys, I don't think there's any questions. So if there's no questions, Oh, you had a question, Scott, but looking to my notes, trying to remember. Okay, no worries. I'll give it a moment. If you want to take a look through your notes, no problem. Yeah. I got P Wood. Just head out how to do it. Are you asking a question or you're saying you're trying to leave? So I'm looking for a checkout trip in the fall. Yeah, I love that checkout trip. It's great. I mean, there's so many good options. So when you leave the country to reset the tourist visa, is there a requirement to show a new return ticket when you re-enter? Great question. The answer is yes, you do. The loophole that many expats do, if you don't know when you would want to go travel again, some people do, right? Like they know like they could come back for 3 months and then they're going to leave again in 90 days. So should also say too, it resets every time you leave. So if you come for 60 days and then you leave the country for 24 hours, when you come back in, that full 90-day allowance period resets. So, you know, if you were to leave and you had a trip planned, if you don't, and you're 90 days, you leave, and then you want to come back in and you don't know when you would go away again. The loophole is on apparently Expedia. I've not done this personally, but on Expedia, you have 5 hours to cancel your ticket. I know many people that when they land in San Jose or land in Liberia will book a ticket and then cancel on Expedia once they're through customs and they're in the country. So they show that ticket at immigration and then they go through. The other thing that you can do, which some people might feel a little more comfortable with, is they just book a ticket, which I've done this many a times, where I'm like, yep, I'd love to be going to Mexico City in 3 months from now. And I book a ticket and I pay a little more to not have the cancellation and not have the change fees. So, you know, there's certain tickets that if you don't choose that option, you're stuck with that ticket. So I always choose an option that gives me flexibility to cancel at any time and flexibility to change my dates at any time. Because I'm usually going somewhere. So I just book that ticket. I pick a date that kind of makes sense. And then that's one option. The other option is with any major airline, they usually allow that if you book the tickets within 24 hours, you're also able to cancel it. So that's a third option. I just find anytime you have to contact an airline to cancel anything, especially these days, it's a royal nightmare. So it's not something like I enjoy doing. So I usually just choose a ticket, choose a place that I know that I might realistically go to. Then you said, when do I go, for how long, and where? Say 3 places on the West Coast, trying to understand where I might stay for good. Needs to be reasonably close to the airport. Okay. So the challenge with Costa Rica is that if you have to be close to the airport, San Jose is going to offer you basically mountain life. So volcanoes, not as hot weather. You're not going to be anywhere near the ocean. The closest from San Jose to the ocean really is about an hour and a half drive if there was no traffic. Like I said, you should always plan that there's always traffic. The other option would be is Liberia, which is much closer to the coast. And you are, you know, not even an hour from Tamarindo, which is like the most common kind of like surf town. So I would say if that's really a factor for you, then I would focus on Liberia airport. And then you've got places like Playa Flamingo, which is great right there. It's in a bay, and it's a very up and coming area, great spot for investment. Also great for scuba diving and deep sea fishing if you like that sort of things. And then south of Liberia, that's where you go on the coast of Tamarindo, then you go Nosara, Santa Teresa. But Nosara and Santa Teresa, that's about a 4 or 5 hour drive from the airport. And again, depending on traffic, it could be longer, it could be a little less. But I would say for you, Tamarindo would be a first great landing spot. Flying to Liberia, go check out Tamarindo, Playa Flamingo. If you wanted to go a bit more to the north to Papagayo, that would be an option too, about an hour north. That's where the only 5-star hotel in the country is, the Four Seasons. And I should say by 5-star, like major hotels. So there are other little 5-star boutique hotels in the country, but that is where the Four Seasons is. And there's really not much to do up there. except for playing golf and tennis at the Four Seasons. But it's a very remote, peaceful, serene, great place to reset, recharge area. But I would say, yeah, fly into Liberia, Tamarindo, and then if you can, make your way down south just to check out Nosara, but you'll probably end up staying in that Playa Flamingo, Tamarindo area. How hard is it to sell property in Costa Rica? Right now, it's not hard at all. If you are under $1.5 million as a price point, because there is no inventory. So that inventory shortage, everybody has it everywhere. Canada, the United States, Costa Rica is no different. So the amount of demand of people wanting to come, not even necessarily to purchase, even people that are just wanting to come and rent and live, we don't have enough inventory available on the market for that in general. So there's a big shortage from that. So if you're in that sweet spot, again, price point wise, Costa Rica is way more affordable. So are there homes there that are 2 million plus? Absolutely. Are they going to sell as quickly? Absolutely not, because that's just not the demographic. That's not the buyer that has been coming to Costa Rica. And so if you have a piece of property, or like if you have real estate that's between, I'm going to say 300,000 to 800,000, in that range, it comes on and it goes off very quickly, as long as your location is prime, right? So oldest rule in real estate: location, location, location. So obviously if you buy a really cheap place that's in the middle of nowhere that nobody wants to go to, then that's not going to sell quickly. But generally, if you are in a good location in between 300 to 800,000, it's going to come on and it's going to come off very quickly. And again, just buying smart, making sure you're not buying a problem. Because again, you could buy a house in a good location. Renovating right now, no different than anywhere else in the world. Materials are so expensive, they've increased, right? And also, so has the cost of labor, and also the delays. So you don't want to buy something that you are going to need to basically give a facelift. I tell my clients all the time, you're looking for the property that at most just needs lipstick. You just need to do like little light touch-ups. But if you have to do a full facelift on a property, that's not my advice to my clients right now, not in this market. Rent is quite affordable. Yes, Scott, it is. It's going up and up. What you could afford to, or what you could get 2 years ago versus now, it's crazy, the difference in the values, but compared to Canadian and American standards, it's still very approachable, where you can find, a place, a pretty decent place for anywhere between, I'm going to say 1,700 to about like 3,500 a month, depending on where you are. But there's a lot of variety when it comes to rentals and what it can get you. Yeah, good point. Inventory. We need more people to buy houses to put them up for rent, or on Airbnb. I checked out last 2-3 months. When should I come catch the tail if my of the rainy and then get the good stuff? So, sometimes it's like hit or miss. Like I was there, I moved in September of last year, as I mentioned, and September was a fantastic month. It barely rained. Like we had rain, I would say once a day, but it was like a power hour of rain. It would rain for 1 hour and then blue skies, super hot. And you're almost like thankful for the rain because of the heat, so it's actually like quite refreshing, and it takes away some of that humidity. October, November is the downpour. So I would say if you wanted to come, like if you're thinking between now and call it the end of the year, I would say August, September is like a good time frame. And then December would be more ideal, but you're at the beginning of the peak of the high season. So you are going to pay more than, and it's depending on where you're staying, Airbnb, hotel, you are going to be paying a premium to be staying in Costa Rica in December versus September for sure. Yeah. But I would say September was a great month. Like we went all over. I went to the East Coast for a week and it barely rained. It was such a good month for us. And the cool thing about Costa Rica is almost every single night you get a lightning storm on the ocean. And if it doesn't rain at night, like you'll just see the lightning on the ocean. So it's pretty magical to watch. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. It's not raining and you get to see the lightning. Any other questions, guys? This has been good. And also some great questions. Sailing. Yeah, like boat sailing, parasailing. I'm thinking you're talking boat sailing. Sorry, in Costa Rica, we've got it all. Sailboats. So yeah, there's lots of sailboats that come into, there's a couple different like main marinas. So in Capos, it's probably one of the larger known ones. Definitely one of the older ones in the country, and in Capos, which is in the south. And then there's also in Los Sueños, which is, if you look up that area, I'll put it into the chat actually so that you know how to spell it. Los Sueños. Los Sueños is, and then Capos is like this too. Sorry, sometimes I kind of forget. So Capos is a marina town. Los Sueños is arguably one of the most successful projects ever developed and built in Costa Rica. The Marriott and some of their partners developed it. It's got an incredible golf course. It's got a huge marina, deep sea fishing, tons of yachts coming in and out. There's shops there. There's community living, rental, full-time livers, pools everywhere. It's a really, really cool spot. So that's another area where you'll see a lot of the sailors coming in. And then in the north, you will have that in Papagayo. In Papagayo. Tamarindo too, but that's not a huge marina town. Tamarindo is really known as like a beach surfer town for its sand break, but yeah, lots of opportunity for sailboats sailing down there. Anything to get on a boat. I'm always about that. Yeah. Cool. Awesome, guys. Well, I don't think we have any other questions. What are the top 3 coastal places you'd recommend to check out for living there? Yeah, so this comes down to like, depending on what you want in a lifestyle, right? Depending on what you're going for. So I'll give you like my top 3 for the polar opposites. If you want quiet, serene, little kind of like beach town, surfer town, not a lot of people, like not a lot of tourists, not even just like a massive community, then in the south where I am, Dominical, Uvita, and Ochal. Dominical, Uvita, Ochal. I spelled that right. Ochal. Those are going to be your top 3 on that side. Nosara and Santa Teresa are much more built up, but they're remote. So you're still gonna, it's still like, once you're there and you're like plugged in for like, you know, it's a good 4 to 6 hour drive from Liberia. But Santa Teresa and Nosara have so much more happening. And I would say like Tamarindo, Nosara, Santa Teresa. And you're just gonna have that many more people, that many more restaurants. Things are also more expensive there because of that. So that's something to think about too. But yeah, those would be kind of my polar opposites. Yeah. Cool. Awesome, guys. Well, thanks for joining today. Can you type out those 2? Sorry, I just saw that, Scott. Yeah, absolutely. So Tamarindo. Bye, Claire. Thanks for joining. Tamarindo, Santa Teresa, and then Nosara. Yeah, those are the 3. My pleasure, Austin. Thank you for joining and appreciate your kind words. Thanks, guys. Alrighty, have a great day. And I'm going to send out the recording too, so you guys can refer back to this anytime. Okay, ciao.